What if I told you that a single moment, one unexpected reaction could change an entire town? Imagine being humiliated in public, mocked by people who don't know your true worth. Most would get angry, some would walk away. But what this elderly man did? It left everyone in stunned silence. Stay with me because this story will make you rethink everything about wealth, respect, and the power of kindness. On a chilly autumn morning, the doors of the bustling cafe swung open and in walked Thomas Reynolds. At 72, he moved with a gentle grace, his old but neatly pressed sweater hugging his frail frame. The cafe was filled with the hum of laughter and conversation, a gathering of young professionals immersed in their routines. Thomas felt a twinge of nostalgia for the days when he had commanded the attention of a classroom, yet he was now a relic in this vibrant space. As he approached the counter, he noticed Lisa Monroe, a single mother, fumbling through her purse with a worried expression etched across her face. Thomas watched her discreetly, his heart aching at the sight. "Excuse me," he said to the cashier, a young woman with a bright smile. "Could you please add this to her bill?" He slid a crisp $10 bill across the counter, his kindness a quiet rebellion against the world's indifference. Suddenly a voice cut through the atmosphere, sharp and mocking. "Look at that old man trying to play the hero." Ethan Carter, a brash young businessman seated nearby, erupted with laughter, his friends joining in the ridicule. "What's next, Grandpa? You gonna save the day with your pocket change?" The cafe erupted in laughter and Thomas felt the heat rise in his cheeks. Lisa's face flushed with embarrassment as she looked down, wishing the floor would swallow her whole. Thomas, however, maintained his calm demeanor. He took a deep breath, considering his next words carefully. "You know, Ethan," he said, his voice steady yet firm, "there's a difference between wealth and richness. Some of us find value in kindness, rather than possessions." The room fell silent for a moment, the tension palpable as patrons shifted in their seats, caught off guard by the old man's unexpected challenge. Ethan's expression faltered, and the laughter dwindled. Thomas stood there, a symbol of resilience amidst the scorn, ready to reveal more than just his past as an educator. The atmosphere in the cafe thickened, setting the stage for a confrontation that would unravel the threads of their intertwined lives. As the laughter from Ethan's mocking faded, the cafe fell into an uneasy silence. Thomas turned slowly, his gaze steady and unwavering, meeting Ethan's eyes. "You know, Ethan," he began, his voice calm but carrying an edge that cut through the tension, "there's a significant difference between wealth and richness. Wealth can buy you luxury, but richness comes from the impact you have on those around you." Ethan squirmed in his seat, the challenge in Thomas's words making him uncomfortable. "What do you know about wealth, old man?" he shot back, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his tone. "You're just a retired principal with nothing but memories." Thomas leaned in slightly, the corners of his mouth lifting just enough to suggest he wasn't angry, just disappointed. "Memories can be more valuable than you think," he replied, his voice steady. "They're the foundation of our community, the threads that bind us together. You may have money, but do you have a legacy? Have you left a positive mark on anyone's life?" Just then, Lisa, who had been quietly observing the exchange, felt a spark of recognition. She leaned towards her friend at the counter, whispering urgently, "Wait, is that Mr. Reynolds? My principal from elementary school?" The words spread like wildfire through the cafe, igniting a ripple of whispers as patrons turned to look at Thomas with renewed interest. Several customers nodded in agreement, memories flooding back. "He taught me how to read," one man said. "I remember when he organized that after-school program for us," another chimed in. The mood in the cafe shifted subtly, the laughter that had once filled the room now replaced by murmurs of respect and admiration. Ethan's confidence began to wane, his bravado crumbling under the weight of the community's shared memories. "Yeah, well," he started, but the words failed him. The faces around him, once amused, now regarded Thomas with gratitude, each person recalling how he had influenced their lives in ways they hadn't fully appreciated until now. "Mr. Reynolds," Lisa called out, her voice rising above the rest, "you were more than just a principal to us. You believed in us when no one else did." The statement resonated, and a chorus of agreement followed, leaving Ethan visibly uncomfortable, his laughter now replaced with a look of confusion. As the tension in the cafe reached a boiling point, Mayor Anderson, a stout man in his 60s, stood up from his corner table. With gray hair slicked back and a tailored suit that exuded authority, he cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the patrons. "Enough of this nonsense," he declared, his voice booming over the chatter. "Thomas Reynolds has dedicated his life to this community. He's more than just a retired principal. He's a cornerstone of our town." Ethan, caught off guard, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his bravado waning under the mayor's scrutiny. "But he's just an old man," he muttered, trying to salvage his pride. "An old man who has shaped the futures of countless children," the mayor countered, his eyes narrowing. "I remember when I was struggling in school. It was Thomas who stayed after hours to help me. He didn't just teach us subjects, he taught us integrity, compassion, and the importance of community." The cafe grew silent, the weight of the mayor's words hanging in the air. One by one, the patrons began to clap, their hands coming together in a show of solidarity. "Thank you, Thomas," someone shouted from the back, and soon more voices joined in, echoing the sentiment. Faces that had once laughed at him now bore expressions of respect and admiration. Ethan's face flushed crimson as he realized the shift in the atmosphere. If this story is already making you feel something, imagine how many others need to hear this lesson. Hit the like button right now so more people can see this powerful message. And tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone being judged unfairly? Let's spread kindness together. As the applause faded, Thomas stood up, his demeanor calm yet resolute. "I appreciate your kindness," he began, looking at the crowd, "but I want to address Ethan directly." Turning to the young businessman, he softened his tone. "We all make mistakes, Ethan. What matters is how we learn from them." Ethan's gaze dropped to the table, shame washing over him. I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't mean to belittle you. I was wrong to judge you based on appearances." Thomas smiled gently, his eyes glimmering with understanding. "Apologies are the first step, but it's what we do after that defines us. Use this experience to grow." The cafe patrons exchanged glances, impressed by Thomas's grace. They could see the transformation in Ethan's demeanor, the young man beginning to understand the true meaning of wealth, not in money, but in character and community. Thomas's words lingered in the air, a reminder that sometimes it takes a moment of humility to encourage change. As the cafe's atmosphere shifted, the chatter around Thomas Reynolds deepened, drawing Lisa Monroe into a contemplative mood. She sat at a small table, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup, a distant look in her eyes. The warmth of the cafe contrasted with the chill of her reality as a single mother. The memory of Thomas's kind gesture earlier that day lingered in her mind, provoking a flood of emotions. "Do you remember Mr. Reynolds?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she turned to a friend seated across from her. "He was my principal back in high school. I used to think he was just old-fashioned, but now I see how much he truly cared." Her friend, a young woman with vibrant red hair, nodded thoughtfully. "He seems like a remarkable person. It's not every day you see someone stand up to a guy like Ethan. He has this way of making you think differently, doesn't he?" Lisa took a deep breath, the weight of her struggles pressing on her chest. "I've been feeling so lost lately. Balancing work and my son's needs is exhausting. But seeing Mr. Reynolds handle that situation with such grace, it's inspiring. Maybe I can find a way to create a better life for us, just like he did for so many others." Across the room, the murmurs of the cafe patrons began to swell as more people shared their own stories of how Thomas had influenced their lives. A middle-aged man with a thick mustache stood up, his voice booming. "He taught me how to read when I was struggling. I was a lost cause, but he never gave up on me." The crowd erupted in supportive applause, and Thomas smiled, his eyes glistening with recognition and gratitude. Another woman chimed in. "He helped my sister get into college. Without him, I don't know where we'd be." As the tales of Thomas's impact unfolded, a sense of community blossomed in the cafe, knitting strangers together through shared experiences. Lisa felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Inspired by Thomas's kindness, she envisioned a future where she could provide for her son, where she could be a beacon of hope just as he had been for so many. "Maybe I could start a program for single parents," Lisa mused aloud, her voice gaining strength. "If I could just help a few people like Mr. Reynolds helped us, it could change everything." The cafe patrons nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting a newfound respect for the elderly man sitting quietly in the corner. The conversation continued to flow, stories and laughter intertwined, as Thomas basked in the warmth of their shared memories. In that moment, the cafe transformed from a mere gathering place into a sanctuary of inspiration, where the legacy of one humble man sparked a collective awakening. Months had slipped by since that pivotal day in the cafe, yet the ripple effects of Thomas Reynolds's words continued to resonate throughout the small town. The once distant echoes of his kindness had transformed into an inspiring movement. It was a crisp morning when Lisa Monroe stood in front of the community center, a flurry of activity bustling around her as volunteers prepared for the upcoming fundraiser in Thomas's honor. With every detail meticulously planned, She felt a sense of purpose that had been ignited by him. "Everyone's coming, right?" she asked her friend Sarah, who was arranging chairs. "Of course. They're all eager to show their support for Mr. Reynolds," Sarah replied, a smile lighting her face. "His impact has been incredible." Lisa nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She remembered how Thomas's gentle encouragement had rekindled her hope and ambition. The scholarship program she envisioned for underprivileged children was beginning to take shape, and she wanted to ensure that Thomas knew just how much he was valued. Across town, Ethan Carter was busy in a different way. After that fateful day at the café, he had felt an overwhelming need to change. He now donned an apron at the local soup kitchen, serving meals with a newfound humility. Each smile he received from the patrons deepened his understanding of community. One afternoon, as he handed a bowl of soup to an elderly man, Ethan paused and asked, "What's the most important lesson you've learned in life?" The man looked up, his eyes twinkling. "It's not about how much you have, but how much you give." Ethan pondered those words as he continued to serve. He was gradually discovering that self-worth came not from wealth, but from the impact one made on others. Back at the community center, as the event drew closer, the atmosphere was electric. Lisa stood on a makeshift stage, her heart racing as she prepared to share Thomas's story. "Today, we celebrate a man who embodies kindness and education," she announced, her voice steady. "With your help, we're creating a scholarship program in his name, ensuring that no child in our community has to go without the opportunities they deserve." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of appreciation washing over the room. In that moment, Lisa felt the collective spirit of the town, united by a common goal. Thomas's legacy was alive and thriving, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead them all. The atmosphere in the community center was electric with anticipation as the fundraiser for the scholarship program began. Thomas Reynolds sat at the head table, a broad smile on his face, surrounded by familiar faces and new friends alike. The room was adorned with balloons and banners that celebrated his legacy, and the air was filled with laughter and warmth. Lisa Monroe stood at the podium, her hands slightly trembling as she prepared to unveil the surprise scholarship named in Thomas's honor. "Thank you all for being here today," Lisa began, her voice steadying as she scanned the crowd. "This scholarship is a testament to the impact Mr. Reynolds has had on our lives. He taught us not just about academics, but about kindness, resilience, and the importance of giving back." The crowd erupted in applause, and Thomas's heart swelled with pride. Just as Lisa was about to reveal the name of the scholarship, the doors swung open with a creak, and all eyes turned to the entrance. A young woman stood framed in the doorway, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, a look of determination etched on her face. Gasps rippled through the crowd as recognition dawned. Emily, Thomas's estranged daughter, had returned. "Dad!" Emily's voice broke the silence, a mixture of fear and hope lacing her words. Thomas's heart raced as he stood, his own emotions swirling. The years of silence between them hung heavily in the air. "Emily?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The crowd held its breath as she stepped forward, her gaze locked onto his. "I've come back," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "I heard about all the wonderful things you've been doing, and it made me realize how much I've missed you. I want you to know that your kindness has inspired me to be a better person." As she reached him, Thomas enveloped her in a warm embrace, tears glistening in his eyes. "I've missed you so much," he murmured, the years of separation dissolving in that moment. The crowd erupted into applause, witnessing the beautiful reconciliation. "I love you, Dad," Emily whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to be part of your life again." "I love you too, Em. We'll make up for lost time," he replied, feeling a weight lift from his heart. In that moment, surrounded by friends and family, Thomas understood that redemption wasn't just about his past, it was about the future they could build together. The room echoed with cheers and applause, a resounding affirmation of love, forgiveness, and the bonds that tie families together, no matter the distance or time apart. If this story touched your heart, then you belong to a special group of people who still believe in respect and humility. Don't miss out on more stories like this. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell. And if you know someone who needs to hear this lesson, share this video with them. Let's remind the world that true wealth isn't about money. It's about the lives we touch.